There's this message here from Lou, and this is a really great indicator of how numbers can paint a different picture, and context means everything. And also how none of this shit is black and white. On top of that being that the majority of people have no idea how to interpret data and what should be good and what's not good. And that is all completely circumstantial. Okay, so here's the thing. Now, Lou gave me a little bit of information here in this question. First, he said he's got a client running a webinar funnel. They're trying to sell a 5 to 10K coaching program. All right. Now he's telling me they got $3 to $4 CPL into a webinar, which is, first of all, just like, that sounds really awesome. And then, but here's the bad part is 80% are dropping off before the offer is what he's telling me, right? And thinks that the link could be the culprit. Okay. Now, based on this data right here, I had sent these videos, a couple of videos back to Lou, explaining to him that, based on what he's telling me right here, it actually, because he's thinking that it's something with the actual webinar itself. And I, based on these numbers, if these were true, then typically what I see when we have low CPLs and there's low engagement, which is what he was indicating with his initial set of data he gave me here, that usually means that it's a problem with the actual ad and or the targeting, the people that are being brought in, possibly the message on the landing page. Now, what he also had indicated here is that when people get in front of the client or the sales team, then it converts, all right? So see, the webinar converted great before we drove cold traffic, right? So that's also another big, huge mistake that a lot of people make is, they get something that will work in a warm traffic environment, and then they put it in the cold traffic and it doesn't work because cold traffic is completely different, all right? Now, so what I had told Lou here is I said, hey, I think what we need, what you've got going on is there's an issue with possibly with the ads, but I need some more info. So then he actually put some real data in here, and we found out quite a bit of a different story. Now that we got the real numbers down here with a lot more information, it paints a completely different picture, right? So first of all, he gave me a number that was not the CPL, it was the CPC. So they're paying $4 a click, not $4 a lead. That completely changes everything. Now, so they're running $7 to $11 a lead, okay? And that's pretty normal for a webinar. That's normal for a webinar that's got a pretty decent hook, pretty strong offer. That's usually bringing in the right kind of person is what that number would indicate, all right? And then now he's saying the consumption isn't too bad. So we've got some real data here now. So we've got 851 people that have visited the registration page, 127 registrants. Okay, now if they're paying $4 a click and they've had 851 people get to that registration page, then we've spent $3,400 already. Okay, now this registration rate of 14.9% is actually not out of the norm for webinars these days. Now, you could push that quite a bit higher, but where it's at right now doesn't really seem to be an issue. And that's pretty normal from what I see. And then we've got a 69% show up rate between the live and the replay, also very normal. So there's nothing wrong with that. And then we've got an average watch time of almost an hour on a 2-hour webinar. Again, very, very, very normal. All right, that's actually a pretty good engagement for that long. If you've got that average of a watch time on a 2-hour webinar, every successful webinar that I've looked at that's been over an hour long, if it's got more than 40 minutes of watch time on average, they tend to be very profitable on the back end. All right. So, and here's the thing, so this is why I'm saying people don't really know how to, interpret the data, because his take is that the registration is not superb, right? But this is actually pretty normal and fine. All right. And then his also take is that because the drop off is happening right here, he thinks there's some kind of problem, or because this is an average, right? This isn't really where everybody's dropping off. This is an average watch time. It doesn't mean everybody's dropping off there. So his assumption is that there's some kind of problem at that mark, and it could be because the CTA starts right about then. And that's also, again, 100% normal in a webinar. The majority of people don't buy on a webinar. If your webinar is really good, you're going to have 1 to 5% conversion rate of all of your leads. into buyers. So, 95 to 99% don't buy. And the majority are going to leave as soon as the content is done. That's normal. I've spent over $5 million now running traffic into different webinars and have looked at, just on one of my webinars alone, I've had over 40,000 people attend that webinar. So we've got just mounds and mounds and mounds of data, and all of these things are normal right here. Right now, what I haven't seen yet is any of the numbers that actually matter, which are the back end. And I'm assuming you don't have any sales yet, which is why we're talking about this. But what I don't know is what's the call to action in the webinar? Is it to apply for a strategy call? How many of those applications have you gotten? Have the sales team talked to any of those people yet? That's what we need to understand, right? Because everything so far is looking just fine on the front end. And I don't think you need to actually change the webinar at all. We don't have any, I'm assuming that this is an application funnel because you're not going to be asking for, well, I could be wrong. Most people aren't going to ask for 5 to 10K where somebody's going to try to put their credit card down online. If that's what's happening in here, then that's the problem, right? If that's not what you're doing and you're getting applications, then I still don't even have the full picture yet because I need to know like how many applications have you gotten for that 3,500 in spend roughly? How many connects have you had? How many conversations has your team had? Is there any sales yet? What are the quality of those leads? If the coaching program's 10K and we're at 3,500 in spend, then we've only spent about enough right now to maybe to get one sale, because you're going to only get 1 to 5% conversion at best. We've only had 127 registrants. So if we haven't really even run this enough yet to determine if you're gonna if this thing's working right, and we're missing still more of the data. So again, this just goes back to my initial points here. The data, depending on what's given, is gonna paint a completely different picture. Most people don't know what are good numbers and what to look at. Most people focus on the front end metrics and don't look at any of the back end stuff. I haven't seen any back end numbers yet, right? Like applications, what happens in any of that process, okay? So these are really, really, really key things. And all of this stuff, once we have that data, on top of that, we'd have to look at the actual shit, like the ads, the landing page, everything in between, to know like where a potential problem would be. All right, so we can identify, or what the problem is. We can identify where the problem would be from the data. And right now, I haven't seen where it is exactly yet. And once we know where that problem is, then we've got to actually look at the material to get an idea of what do we change. And all of that stuff is circumstantial. It's circumstantial to your business model, the market that you're in. There's all these nuances that affect conversion of all these things. And the majority of people want black and white. They're like, oh, well, what do I do in this case? I'm running a webinar, right? So then my webinar must be the same as everybody else's. No, it's not. It's not. Now, some of these metrics can be. And right now I'm not seeing, I literally haven't seen anything yet other than your CPC being $4. But other than that, I haven't seen anything yet that is kind of wonky in your process at all. So we got to get more data, Luke. All right. So Luke is asking some questions here about, lowest hanging starting point for a lead magnet. All right. So, the lead magnets, people, you got to first start with the issues that your ideal customer has. What's the biggest problem that they're looking to solve? And then if your goal is to use that to pull people into your funnel, then we want to, if you want your lead costs to be as low as possible, then you want to create an easy to consume lead magnet that gives people the solution that they're looking for to that problem. Right now, things like PDFs, checklists, cheat sheets, that kind of stuff, those things are easy to consume lead magnets that work very well. You can also do, like Luke's mentioning here, case study videos and have them opt in for that. Webinars, those are going to be where you're going to have a little bit higher cost lead because you're qualifying the person a little bit better, right? So, depending on what you're trying to do, that will determine the lead magnet that you're going to use, Right now, Luke here is, I believe, trying to generate more sales for his agency. So, either of those are going to be fine. It just depends on like what is your, your strong suit, what's easy for you to put together, and then you just run with it. Right? That's it. Like, I don't make a black and white suggestion. This lead magnet works better than this, or you should always do this. It's all about understanding your market and giving them what they want, all right? And then we also want to leverage our strengths so that we're doing things that we're good at, so that the content comes off good, it helps people, it inspires them, gets them to come into your world and play with you, right? So that's what you want to do in putting that together. Take a look also at what your competitors are doing and, try to do something a little bit different. Try not to do the same thing as those guys. All right, so now we've got Julian here. So I'm going to go through all of his funnel stats here. Okay, cool. So thanks for providing all of this detailed information here, Julian. I appreciate that. So one thing I'm not clear on is if you had run multiple creatives. Yeah, okay. So you did have a couple of different creatives in this one. I'm not sure if you ran that, if in all the campaigns. Did you run all the same creatives? Was it one creative? Was it multiple creatives? I'm not sure if you did that across all the campaigns. If these were like the same in each, because it looks like they're different, right? So, that's one thing I wanted to understand is, was at least one version of your control or a creative like run across all of these? Because none of them are anywhere close to your KPI yet, right? So when we have that kind of issue, and we look at like the conversion rate for the opt-in, the conversion rate is pretty low for, and actually it's a live webinar funnel. So that's actually kind of, right where it needs to be. So when I'm looking at the data right here, it appears to me that it's an offer issue. More than likely it's that they don't want to sign up for the live webinar because maybe the time doesn't work for them. I'd have to really see the ads and the landing page to get an idea of what's going on there. But anytime we're like way out of KPI like that, and we've tested, you clearly have tested a lot of different things. You tested audiences, you've tested creatives, you've probably tested a bunch of different settings inside of the account. When we're not getting the numbers after doing that, then that tells us it's an offer issue, right? Something it's either the presentation of the offer, it's the delivery of the offer, or it's the offer itself, because sometimes the whole offer, is just total garbage, right? In this case, it more than likely is the delivery of the offer over the offer itself or the presentation of the offer. And the reason I say that is because I know you know how to put those things together, Julian, and you're good at it, right? So I'm leaning towards it's the fact that it's a live webinar and people don't want to register for that. So, you might want to consider maybe flipping the model just a little bit and putting a lead magnet in front and then having the webinar registration as the thank you page. And you probably have seen that model before. It's been run for a long, long, long time. But that might be a better way to go about doing that is just, maybe just have a lead magnet and get people on your email list, warm them up, and then get them onto the live webinar instead of putting the live webinar into the front of the funnel. Because as you've admitted here, and this is one thing that I have a lot of my clients do, everybody says this, hey, everything works well with our warm traffic. So then what people want to do then is they're like, oh, let's just drive cold traffic right into our warm traffic thing. When it usually makes a lot more sense to create a lead magnet and start building your email list more and then just back end those people into the webinar. So that would be my suggestion for you. Okay, and then it looks like Mertuz's got another question here. He's been asking about, testing in here, okay? And so again, this is another fine example of how nothing is black and white, okay? You do this way every single time, all right? Now, the circumstance here is he's got some stuff going. It's within KPI. It's starting to trend out of KPI. And he wants to start testing other stuff, and he's worried about creating overlap and yada, yada, all these issues that everybody else is concerned about, right? So what I've found out through series of questioning here in the posts is that his current ads are only in the feeds placement, and he wants to start testing ads for other placements. Right now, what we don't want to do is we don't want to be adding in tests like that for other placements into an existing campaign or ad set that is producing the results that we're looking for. Okay? Because we don't want, anytime we got something that's working, you leave that shit alone. The more that you touch it, the more chances you have of screwing it up. All right? So what you'll want to do if you want to test other placements is duplicate your campaign. So you got another version of the campaign, and duplicate your ad sets that you want to test, and then change the placements in those and change the creative to fit the placement. Or if the creative already fits those placements, keep the same creative. You don't necessarily need to adjust the creative. And actually, it's best to keep the creative the way it is, because you want and the audience and the campaign, the only thing that you would change would be the placement, because that's going to give you a true placement test. If you do a different ad with those placements to the same audiences, then you don't know if it was the ad that worked or didn't work, or if it was the placements that worked or didn't work. In this case, you want to isolate the variable to the placements. You're going to duplicate the campaign, start that campaign with the new placements. You got the same creative in there, same audience, and away you go. All right, so there we go. We got everybody's pending questions answered. Hopefully that's helpful for y'all. Go out and make your ads pay. To the Victor Belong Spoils, this is Jason.